What's up, guys? My name is Javi, aka PASO Productions, and I'm today's guest on the PASO Creatives podcast show, and I'm going to be talking about my photography.
Awesome, Javi. Well, it's a pleasure having you on the show. Usually we do these on Thursdays, but today we're doing it on a Saturday. But we're keeping the flow going. So, the first thing I kind of want to ask every guest that we have on the show is, what is Pasta Productions? What is the meaning behind it? If your brand, your name, why the name Pasta Productions, or what did you do? What do you do as a photographer? What type of photographer are you?
All right, so I am a freelance photographer. Pretty much, I don't really have a set style of photography. I'm pretty well rounded, in my opinion. I try to get a little bit of everything that I do. Um, Pretty much, when it comes to my photography, I do whatever inspires me, whatever I feel kind of like doing. So I guess that part is what really bursts out my creativity. Um, but I'll go ahead and touch on that right now. Positive Productions is pretty much a page that I created to really express my creativity towards photography and hopefully soon my aim towards videography. Um, Funny thing. So when I was coming up with the name Pasta Productions, so I was barely jumping back into photography.
Mm.
I had done photography in the past, but I was deciding to jump back into it about a year ago. And I followed a lot of the main photographers here in El Paso. And, a lot of them had catchy names. And I was like, well, what the hell am I going to name myself? Like what's going to be my trademark? So I remember one night I was with some friends. We went to Village Inn, and my friends are idiots. We laugh about the dumbest things. So as we were walking out of Village Inn, on the door it says "Hasta la pasta." So then we started saying it. We started using it as a joke, and I started thinking about photography. And then for some reason, I thought about like shirts, and I was like, hey, like it'd be pretty cool if I were to make shirts with little pasta bowls on them or something,
Mm.
and have like different pasta bowls. And then I was like, wait a minute, like I can tie that in with my photography. So that's when I came to Pasta Productions.
Mm.
I
And
was like, you
so
know what, that's it.
that leads me to this question I just thought about right now is like coming as the name Pasta Production, how important do you think it is for the name itself to like brand yourself, and how important do you think is like to have like a good catchy name when you're making a brand in photography or you're establishing your photography?
Honestly, when you have a unique name, you definitely stick out a lot more. I remember when I first started. I mean, of course, usually when it comes to a brand name or, I mean, being part of like a car club, your car is what stands out. I feel like that name, Pasta Productions, is what really helped me, I guess, advertise and get my name out there.
Yeah.
So I started posting and I started getting a lot more views. So then people would say, "Oh, did you see Pasta Productions?"
Yeah.
They didn't say, "Oh, did you see Javi's work?" Say Pasta Productions, and it starts becoming a repetitive like ring
Yeah.
in people's mind. And I feel like once you have a catchy name, that's what's gonna stick on. Like you have people like Mario Oreo,
Hmm.
like that name's gonna stick right away.
That sticks in it,
You
right?
know,
And all that. Yeah.
yeah, of course. So when you have a really catchy name, I feel like it helps with the publicity really getting your name out there.
Yeah. And so what got you into photography? What caught your eye into wanting to do photography?
So I had started, I guess you could say I started photography back when I was in middle school.
Hmm.
So I started off in the yearbook club. Um, I saw like some of the students, like some of the eighth graders, over here taking pictures at the football games and at school events. I was like, hey, like that's pretty cool. So my parents had a little camera lying around at home. Um, like one of the really like basic ones that you could barely do like that bad quality video. take some pictures. It was like one of the first like digital ones that come out at the time, and that's where I started off. I mean, of course, the pictures were raw; they were terrible.
Yeah.
But I was like, I was starting to get a feel for the angles. And then time passed. I started high school, and my first years of high school, I didn't really do photography. But I became really close with some guys that I met at school, and I guess all together within our group, we kind of went towards photography. So my friend Ivan, he's the one that started. He's an all-round creative person. And at the time, he bought a camera. He started photography, and pretty much our hangouts were getting together, going to abandoned places, exploring El Paso, and taking pictures. Like that was our fun.
Right.
And little by little, one of the other guys in the group got a camera, and I was like, hey, like this stuff is pretty cool. Like I started associating myself with a lot more photographers in El Paso. He did a photo meet with desert people, and that's where I met more people. And I was like, you know what? Like I'm inspired. I want to jump into this. I want to get this done.
And so what's
And
your
I guess that's where it started.
what's your niche in photography? Like, what is your main focus on? Like, people do landscape, portraits, things like that. What do you more focus on?
As of right now, I feel like the most work I've done would have to be either car photography or portraits.
Mhm.
I've recently been expanding my boundaries, and I've been doing some landscaping. Leva has been helping me out with some astrophotography. But I'm pretty much open to anything.
Yeah.
I'm willing to learn how to do anything. I feel like that helps you to be a better photographer all around.
Mhm. And so doing all these like things in photography, which one has been like the one where you found the most valuable skill in that you learned the skill and you're like, this is kind of the most valuable thing, like for doing astrophotography, like the settings for the night mode and all that. Like what skills have you found valuable that you learned throughout all of these photography?
Overall, I feel like one of the most important aspects of photography is lighting. Lighting and knowing how to um, work with your camera in certain lighting situations. When I had first started off, I remember I started taking pictures of some cars, and lighting was terrible. You can see all the shadows.
Yeah.
You could barely even see the small details in the photos. And that's where I picked it up. I was like, no matter whether it's car photography, landscape, portraits, astrophotography, anything, lighting and knowing how to use your camera in those lighting situations is what's important. And it'll help your picture so much.
Yeah. And so like nowadays everyone has access to like a phone, everybody takes pictures with their phones, things like
Yeah.
that. And so how would you as a photographer distinguish or make a difference between what a professional photography looks like and what a hobbyist photography looks like?
So now with technology and these new phones, I mean, they have the camera settings built into them. You have higher resolutions, you have all these filters, all these settings you can do, which do bring you closer
Mhm.
to, I mean, actual photographers. But I feel like the main difference between someone who's shooting with their phone and someone who's actually using a camera is pretty much the vision, the angle. Because you could tell when somebody just picks up their phone and takes a picture.
Yeah.
But not everybody can pick up a camera and be able to mess with your aperture and mess with your settings in order to really bring out the details of a certain picture.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's a big difference you could tell. I mean, there is some photographers out there that start off with phones. I mean, I'm one of them. I started off with my iPhone 7, because I didn't have access to a camera. But once I did switch to a camera, you could see the difference in the quality, in the detail. And I personally feel like when it comes to photography, cameras are always the way to go.
Yeah. And it's crazy too, because like now, for example, like the iPhones, like those cameras on there, they're getting crazy good on like how the
Oh
quality
yeah,
comes
most
out, the
definitely.
sharpness, the colors, and all that. So I've seen like a couple of videos where like even an iPhone, like the new iPhone is better than like those Sony A7 cameras and all that.
Oh yeah, most
So
definitely. Yeah.
today I'm actually gonna test that out today. I'm gonna go and do a photo shoot. And I'm just gonna do it purely with the phone, the iPhone 12 and all that, the Pro, and just see how the difference comes out from like a what a professional photography is, and then doing a whole photo shoot with just your phone and see if it does compare like the same way, like whether it looks like it's professional photography or you could tell the difference, things like that. So anybody, I agree, like anybody can even get started with just a phone, like how you said when you started with your iPhone 7. You know, you don't need the most expensive equipment to get started. You don't need the
Oh
most
yeah, no.
lenses, things like that. How's your creative process like from getting a client or when you go and doing a shoot? Like how do you go about planning your shoots and going out and taking the photos, editing?
So for me, pretty much what I do, I mean, sometimes people come to me, asking for my prices for my rates for a shoot for them. In that situation, from there we go ahead. I give them my information, pretty much what I do. I ask them for their idea.
Yeah.
You gotta look at locations and maybe props, what you're gonna be doing. And then from there, once we do decide what we're gonna do, we go ahead and set an appointment. I try to go around um, my client's time. I try to move around and work with their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But once we do that, I go ahead, write it down on my calendar, set the appointment. We show up there a couple minutes before, pretty much go over what we're going to be doing, show them the location, and then after, once the photo shoot is done, of course, I go ahead and take the person's email. I usually take about 1 to 3 days to edit.
Mm-hmm.
Once they are edited, I send them the pictures via email, and then pretty much from there, they pay me through Cash App or however they feel like paying, of course. Because it's so much easier now with technology. You don't
Yeah,
have to go to person anymore. Like,
you don't gotta write checks, you don't gotta give cash, it's like Zelle,
yeah,
things like
it's a lot easier.
yeah.
It's a lot easier.
Now when you get like, for example, like commercial businesses or like brands, things like that, how do you go about working with them? And like, is there a different structure from like just working with anybody that's doing like family portraits, things like that, or senior photos, and then like working with like businesses and venues and things like that?
So as of right now, that's actually what I'm figuring out.
Mm-hmm.
So I have yet to work with a business, but I'm actually talking to a homie that's planning to start his own, and that's kind of where I'm planning to, really build that up and kind of mess around with the structure of what I'm gonna be doing
Right.
for that type of photography, of course.
And then when you deal with clients, what do you see as like the most difficult thing that you come across with your clients, things like that?
I feel like the most difficult thing with clients would have to be pretty much just committing and like coming through. Because you're always gonna have people that are gonna, cancel a certain appointment. Um, I feel like overall, it's just having good communication with your client. I think that's
And
very important.
do you do like those like like 50% like deposits, like non-refundable, or do you just go about like just like they pay at the full at the end or upfront?
As of right now, I'm doing just paying the full at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I am planning to start doing a deposit.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's time that I'm wasting, whether like they don't show up and then I have another person that I could take as an appointment at the exact same time. I mean, we all have busy schedules. I got work, I have school. So once I set your appointment, it's in a really tight space where I make time specifically for that.
Right, like the
So when
planning.
they cancel,
Mhm.
then that's another client I could have taken care of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so any role models you always looked up to, like doing photography that you're like inspired by? Like for example, mine would be Brandon Wolf. I don't know if you know who that is. Like the night.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. So like any role models or things that you go about that inspired you?
yeah. I wouldn't really say that I have any role models as of right now. because I try to take in pretty much everything I see, whether it's a photographer that I follow, whether it's a magazine, or if it's just something that I see along my day.
Yeah.
I feel like my greatest inspiration would have to be just creativity and having an imagination towards your photography, and I guess pretty much making it your own. I feel like that's where it counts,
Mm-hmm.
when you don't copy somebody else, where you take it from your own mind and your own imagination, and you really put everything into it and just make it your own.
Yeah, and everything, like every little thing has its own like personality or characteristic in a way. Like whether it's like a just like a junkyard or something, like that junkyard has a lot of character to it and a lot of like
Oh
detail
yeah,
to it. So
and
it's like
that's what I love, man. Like you can see a people will look at a certain location and see it as very simple. Like
mhm,
you see it plain, straightforward. But as a photographer and as a creative person, you once you see a location or a setting or a prop, your mind starts going.
yeah,
Your imagination starts popping. Like, you know what, this is what I could do. This is what I want to do. And I feel like that's how I partake a lot of my personal photography.
mhm,
Um, Once I have an idea, it's just bursts, and I'm like, you know what, I want this, and I have a certain image for it, and I work towards building that. Which is like right now I'm working on a project actually. I'm planning to do this one photo shoot. I want kind of like a punk thrasher vibe,
yeah,
and I mean I have my set location. I have a certain image for the person that I want to be in it, to give off a certain vibe. And right now I'm actually looking for props, because I'm planning to destroy some things and I want to get some action shots and
yeah,
breaking stuff with sledgehammers and baseball bats. And I mean, my vision started with I saw somebody was giving away an old TV,
mhm,
and I was like, I went and picked it up, and I was like, you know what, I know what to do with this. I was like, I'm gonna go destroy it, and then
yeah.
ideas started flowing, and I mean that's what I'm working on right now. So,
And what do you like most about photography, and what do you dislike the most about photography?
like I had said before, the just being able to express yourself.
Mhm,
That's my favorite part of photography. That's why I jump back into it, because I feel like it's it's an excellent way to be artistic.
mhm,
My least favorite would probably have to be, I mean, at least in El Paso, just how unappreciated it is.
yeah,
Like you said before, with the whole technology and people using their phones, um, there's been a decline in people booking photo shoots because they state, "Oh, I can just take this with my phone. Why do I need to pay a photographer to do this when I can just take out my brand new iPhone and take the exact same picture?"
yeah,
And I
yeah.
feel like yeah, I don't know, it's just difficult.
Yeah, and I feel like also like the most challenging part on even getting like gigs nowadays is also like the COVID relation. Like people are scared
Oh
to
yes,
still go
most
out again, like,
definitely.
after a year, and which is still reasonable. But I also wanted to ask you that, like, how did the whole COVID pandemic, how did that affect you on the going out and getting gigs or doing shoots or in your photography career?
So I had just jumped back into photography a little before COVID had started.
Hmm.
So I felt like that was a huge setback for me because I had a whole plan of, going out and pretty much experimenting and messing with my camera so I could learn and become better, especially since it was around springtime, summertime,
Hmm.
when everything went up and we went into quarantine. Um, but that did, I guess, kind of help me because I was able to really focus on learning the camera. I mean, pretty much I would just shoot at home.
Yeah,
Anything I could take a picture of, I would take a picture of. I'd go outside in the evening, try to get some shots of, you got the sky, you got, plants and stuff. And I mean, my family did help me by, modeling for me.
right.
But overall, that quarantine and COVID and everything just pretty much made it really difficult for everybody. And some of my personal photographer friends had said the same thing. I mean, this side gig sometimes helps us, in our everyday lives. And, if we set an appointment or something, we revolve our life around maybe that money we might make in that situation or something. And I feel like that decline really hit everybody, not just, financially, but not being able to post, not being able to reach the people that we're reaching. And overall, I'm glad things are calming down now.
Yeah.
But even then, people are still afraid. People still don't want to, associate themselves with the community because of that. But we just gotta get through it. We can't really do much about the situation now. We just gotta take precautions and just make the client feel a lot safer. Just pretty much go about that.
Yeah, no, and I understand you too. Like, we had a lot of events planned for last year that we're hopefully trying to do this year now, because last year we couldn't do nothing. It was very hard.
Yeah, I saw you guys had set that photo meet.
Yeah, we
I
just
think it was around that time, and you guys had to move it to recently, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so we did do one. We did one, like, we barely did it before COVID hit. Like, we did it in January, and then everything started around March, and then everything around there. We did like an art event around like September, and that was the only thing we were able to do until like this year. We just did a photo meet 2 weeks ago, and that went pretty good. So we're like, okay, things could pick up a little bit. We just got to be safe about them and take all the precautions, things like that. Because a lot of photographers are coming to us too, and they were telling us like, hey, we weren't gonna come, but we did, because we heard you guys were going to be safe about it, and everyone's wearing their mask, which is a good thing. And so it's just like, okay, gaining that trust of safety again, in a way of like, okay, we're going to make that still mandatory, whether it's by law or not by law. And so
yeah, of course,
things will pick up like that. But like, aside from COVID and all that, was there any like other critical points that you hit along your path that you maybe had to make a sacrifice, or you had to make a tough decision to keep going with like your path of photography?
Honestly, yeah. So I feel like a big thing when it comes to being a photographer, especially if you're going to be on social media promoting yourself, is having people who are going to, support you. Thankfully, I had a lot of people who helped me and supported me and helped get my name out there. But I did, give away a couple of photo shoots to really get my name out there. I did have really low prices in the beginning, so I was losing a little bit of money, time, but I didn't really care for it because I saw it. I was like, I need to invest in getting my name out there and really going towards that social media and publicity, so I could gain that trust and gain, I guess, the name and the popularity, if you want to say, to really continue my photography and continue to express my ideas.
And then, so going out in the field of photography, what is one thing that you think is always crucial to take with you to any shoot, regardless whether it's like a portrait shoot or a wedding shoot or anything? Like, what's one key thing that you always have to have with you as a photographer?
For sure, an extra battery. That's one thing. Maybe extra memory space, because I remember when I had started, I remember I hadn't backed up my memory card, of course, and I'm shooting, and then all of a sudden I can't shoot anymore because my memory card was full. And I'm like, I wish I would have bought an extra one. Or even batteries. There's a lot of situations where you're just in the middle of a photo shoot and you see your battery's about to die. Maybe you have a perfect setting, perfect lighting. You're like, no, like, I just lost my opportunity because I wasn't prepared.
And it sucks too, like when you're with the client and like you still owe them time of photography, but like you can't do much because your memory's filled up. You forgot your extra battery. So that happened to me one time too. I was doing a shoot and then my memory filled up. So like I was like, I didn't tell them that my memory filled up. Like little by little, I was just deleting pictures like that were like, I was like, So I was like kind of editing out pictures while I was still shooting, just to like get one more photo in or two more photos in up until like we reached the end of the time. It is.
And you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. And so how do you educate yourself? Like, how do you keep going on with the trends, or how do you keep learning as a photographer?
I just try to really, I go watch YouTube videos, of
Yeah.
course. I mean, that's one of the biggest platforms where you can learn how to do stuff. If you need to learn how to do anything, go on YouTube,
Yeah.
look it up. There's a bunch of other people around the world that are gonna help you and that are looking for the same thing. Also, social media. I mean, social media plays a huge part in our lives. Everybody's posting trends, posting kind of certain vibes, and I feel like as long as you're close to the community and towards what the people are looking for, you'll be able to, I mean, stay up to date with whatever's out there, and that'll help you really get your photography out. Because I mean, people are always focusing on trends.
Yeah.
Like, was it on Halloween when they were doing that ghost trend with the white sheets? You know, like
Oh yeah.
that was a huge thing. I remember seeing a lot of photographers going out there and doing that
Yeah.
same trend, and it just became big.
Sticking up with it, you get more exposure like that. Yeah, sticking up with the trends, exactly. And like I like how you said with the YouTube and all that, like not everybody knows everything. Like there's like professional photographers, they're still learning, you know. And that's been
Oh
something
yeah, of
in
course.
my last episode too, is like no matter how long you've been in it, like 15 to 10 years, whatever, you still don't know much. So for somebody to come up to you and be like, I know
Yeah.
everything, you know, it's not really true. I mean, you're always still learning. There's always something to learn.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, you there's never a limit to what you can learn.
Yeah.
Never. You're always growing, and that's a cool part about being involved in photography, is that so much more equipment's gonna come out. There's still so much more you can do with your camera and learn about your camera. I feel like, because I recently just got a new one, and it's a blank page.
Yeah.
It's a new camera for me. I still need to learn all the settings that I can do, just pretty much pushing it to its boundaries. And overall, I mean, there's so many types of photography you can do, and so many ways you can go about. And I feel like it's just a constant learning process. No
Hmm.
matter, like you said, how experienced you are, how long you've been doing it, you're
Hmm.
not going to know everything.
And in the creative industry, if you weren't doing photography, what else would you be doing? Like, would you ever paint? Would you ever model? Would you ever like anything like that?
Um, Honestly, I think modeling is pretty cool. It is difficult.
Hmm.
Um, I've seen that. I've worked with Leva. He's a really good friend of mine,
Yeah.
and with Trinity.
Hmm.
Um, and I've had them like do some pictures for me. Like they how so I just made some merch. They helped me with some pictures for that. My birthday had just passed not too long ago, and I modeled to for them to take some pictures of me for my birthday. And it's different being in front of the camera,
Hmm.
rather than behind it. You're really put under pressure once you see that lens pointing at you. You're like, you freeze. And
Hmm.
I feel I give props to a lot of people who do model, because it is difficult trying to find your pose, your look, something that's gonna look good on you. I mean, because you can't copy the same pose as somebody else, because you're gonna look awkward. So I
Right.
feel like that's something I would go into, and I would love to learn about. I mean, because that helps you as a photographer as well.
And I'm interested. I have another question. Is like when you're shooting with a model who doesn't necessarily know how to model, how do you pose your models? Like, do you know how to pose your models, or how do you teach yourself to pose your models? Like for me, I go on Pinterest and I'm like, here, copy this pose, you know. But like,
Yeah.
how do you go about like modeling models who don't necessarily know how to pose?
So I honestly do the same thing, man. I go on Pinterest. I mean,
Mm.
they have so many different poses that you could do. But overall, I think one rule that I really follow, that I tell pretty much all my clients, is do something you're comfortable with.
Mm.
Because if you put somebody in a certain pose and they're not comfortable with it, whether it's like the way their body is formed or the way they're looking,
Yeah.
that picture's gonna look awkward.
Mm.
The picture's not gonna come out as well as in a pose where somebody's comfortable and they feel natural in So usually, I mean, I will give people poses to do like ideas, but I aim towards them. I'm like, go at it, have fun, mess around with what you feel comfortable with. And I feel like that's how the pictures are going to come out the best. I mean, this isn't a high school yearbook picture where they have you pose with your shoulders up and, your
Yeah.
chin. Like, I mean, yeah, you feel awkward and you don't feel like you look good. And when it comes to modeling, you got to be
Yeah.
comfortable. You got to be confident.
Yeah.
And how are you going to be confident in some things that you don't feel right in,
Yeah. And I learned from a modeling studio a couple months back. They had like this 3-step rule where it's like you do a stance like looking forward, and then you turn to the side, and then you turn your body like to the side, but like your head like facing towards you.
Yeah.
Another model who he told me, he was like, just move your eyes. Like every time you move your eyes, it's a different pose, which is true. Like it comes out different on the photo.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you're looking straight, and then you look to the side, and then it's another pose, and it looks different. So like even just moving like little parts of your body, whether it's your hands or your chin a little bit, your eyes, it makes a difference too.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
good.
most definitely. And a lot of models actually do that now. I mean, I've worked with a couple. You could see that they're comfortable with their poses right away because you feel that vibe, you feel that energy of
Yeah.
them. They start looking, they start moving their chin slightly to a certain direction. Like you said, they start moving their eyes, maybe
Mm.
like maybe a hand movement or something, and it, like you said, it changes the picture completely. And
Everything.
that's when the photo's the best, when you're able to feel that energy and that confidence, and it just makes everything so much easier.
And you come out with things too that you didn't even realize like you could like take a photo of. It's just you come out with different scenarios, different poses, things like that. And so moving a little bit more forward into those last two questions I wanted to ask you. I hope you thought about them. Is compared to where you're at right now, what is something you know now that you wish you would have known when you first started?
Um, I wish I would have known. I guess just how competitive and how challenging it is to come up as a new photographer.
Hmm.
Um, because you come up with all these expectations and you feel the need for people's support right away,
Yeah.
and that's not really the case. Pretty much just don't get discouraged when you don't really see much happening in the beginning. Everything's a process. Everything takes time, and the more work you put into it, the better it's gonna be. And I feel like just pretty much having um, that energy and continuing to push and thrive is what'll help you. I mean, people are always gonna talk. People are always gonna discourage your ideas,
Yeah.
but as long as it makes you happy and as long as you like it, that's what matters at the end.
Yeah. There's always gonna
And
be
I feel like I wish I would have known that.
yeah, there's always gonna be somebody out there who's just gonna be telling you like, nah, this sucks, or I can take that photo. But they
Yeah,
don't know what it takes to learn it too. And then so even here in El Paso, like it is very competitive because El Paso is also very small. And so it's about,
yes, of
trying to
course.
expand out and maybe even take trips to different places, and go network out there. Like
I almost definitely. You don't want to take your pictures at the same location that 10 other photographers
yeah.
took their pictures at. I mean, you have repetitive locations such as the plaza. You have a bunch of people who shoot at the orphanage
Yeah.
or you know, you have the fountains, all these places where people always go to. So you always like want to go out and search. And that's one of the things I really like to do is I'll take a day or two and I'll drive all over El Paso and just pretty much with my mind open for more ideas and more locations. I mean, you have your popular part of downtown, like I said, the plaza, but you got to look at the outskirts of downtown where you can do so much more. And it's pretty much being creative,
Like the alleys and
having
like that. Mhm.
yeah, like there's so much more you could do than just go to those main places, and that's where it goes to making your photography unique. And I feel like if you try to, like I said before, if you try to copy everybody else, how are you gonna stand out?
Exactly. Yeah. And so like I like how you mentioned like the outskirts of it. So like whenever I go to downtown, I don't never shoot like the end of downtown. I shoot near like the border where like all the like crossing a Juarez.
Oh yeah, that's where the best places are.
And I don't see a lot of photos like that. I don't see a lot of people going out there and taking photos there. But I'm like, those are like the little, like the rich places, like the rich character, the rich, details and everything. Like you get the culture and everything. So I'm like,
Yeah, that's where it matters. I think that's what photography is about. Like,
yeah. Like I'm really big on doing like street photography too. Like I would drive around sometimes with a friend and he would be driving. I'd be like taking pictures out of the window and just capturing like whatever's going on throughout the city. Like just taking pictures out of the window and like capturing like this. I got
yeah.
this one cool photo one time. This guy was like sitting outside of his store. It was like a bread store and he had like a bunch of breads lined up to him. So I made it black and white and he was like this very old man. And then I made one of the breads stand out. And that photo, it had so much power to it. It's just like this old guy, a black and white photo, and then like just like the color, like a color pop of the bread coming out. And to me, it was like a very strong photo. I was like, that has a lot of character, a lot of like emotion into it.
Most definitely. And honestly, that's my favorite part. When you capture something and when you're able to make it your own. So I feel so a lot of photographers, I've talked to a couple, they don't I remember a lot of them saying that they don't like editing.
Yeah.
Some photographers do decide to keep their pictures raw, which is no problem at all. I mean, having raw pictures, having good raw pictures is difficult sometimes, and having them really stand out and pop. But personally, editing is my favorite part. I feel like that's where you can transform a picture into anything you want.
Yeah.
And that's what I take most of my time in. Once I finish a photo shoot, I love sitting there, I upload my pictures and I put my music because I try to put my music towards the vibes that I'm looking for in the photo. So if I'm going for something, black and white, something with an older look, I'm gonna play something, maybe some oldies, maybe some jazz.
Get the inspiration.
And I revolve that music around the vibes that I'm going for.
Yeah.
Or if I'm going for something a lot harder, a lot more rough, you gotta put your rock music or something. That's what inspires me. That's what I try to connect my photography with. And I feel like once you go through that creative process, you see that image change, and you have certain colors pop, certain details pop, and I mean, that's where you make it your own.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's just keeping in the inspiration going, and trying to find the inspiration. And so I want to share pieces of advice for anybody starting up. My piece of advice would always be, just don't quit when you're getting started. Because like, for example, like you right now, you know all this much stuff, you know how to take a picture now. And when you first started, you wanted to be at that spot right now where you're like, I know this now and all that, So like
most definitely.
advice would be like, just don't quit, just keep going and going. What would be your piece of advice that you would give to somebody starting up?
Honestly, I'd say the same thing. Don't quit because you're gonna regret it.
Yeah.
You really are. Because you're gonna be like, you're gonna think I could have been at this stage, or people are always gonna think about the what ifs, or what could have happened, and avoid that state of mind and just do it. If you have an idea, go do it. It doesn't matter what people say. Just like I said, at the end, just if it makes you happy, that's what matters.
Exactly. Yeah. And so now, before I let you go, where can people find your work? Where can people find you, contact you, if you have a website, things like that?
So people can most definitely hit up my Instagram page, PASO Productions _. I have all my work there. I have a link that shows every photo shoot that I've done since I started my Instagram. It does have my contact information on there, so people can text me, email me, whatever. But my DMs are definitely open, and I'm always looking to work with new people.
And Instagram is such a tool. Like people go on there and just post like their daily lives, but you could use it as a business tool to like just promote your brand and your photos.
That's the thing about social media now. Everything has been converted to business. I mean, business is everything when it comes to our daily lives. You got your Facebook marketplace, you got all these people advertising, paying for advertisements and sponsors, and pretty much I just reaching a bigger variety of people. And it's such a great tool that we could use now to tie in with something that everybody uses every day.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like you just use it for anything else. Like even building a website and then having like landing pages on your website and then putting like blogs on there and things like that.
Yeah, most
Surprisingly
definitely.
to me, I thought it was surprising. Like people still go out and read blogs and things like that. So like people would go research on websites and just read a blog. So those things help a lot, bring more traction into you. So
Oh
anything.
yeah, I think that's super cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey brother, I appreciate you coming onto the show. And I'm
Of
gonna let you
course.
go.
Thank
But is there
you.
anything else that you wanted to mention? Anything else you wanted to say or share before I let you go?
I think that's about it, man. I think I pretty much said everything I had to say.